I wasn't really looking forward to another summer job at the local pizza restaurant, which is why I was thrilled when I received an unexpected phone call from my uncle, offering me a job at the hotel he owned. He needed to visit an old friend at the hospital and told me that I was the only one he could trust with such an important job. It was quite late by the time I arrived at the hotel, and it had been raining for most of the day. My uncle had already left and hadn't had time to explain exactly what I needed to do, but he told me that he had left a note outlining some very important rules that he insisted I follow. The hotel lobby was completely empty, which kind of made sense considering the late hour and the fact that the area was quite remote and wasn't really well known for its nightlife. The interior of the hotel was very cold and dark. The lights were on but were extremely dim, so there wasn't much illumination at all, apart from the odd flash of lightning. The lack of tapestry and carpet was evident, which explained the echoes of distant thunder and rain throughout the hotel. That being said, I could definitely appreciate the appeal of staying at such a place, secluded from the outside world, providing a form of escape for the guests. I approached the reception desk and observed a handwritten note. The note was very short, but I paid close attention to every word. To my dear nephew, thanks for stepping in so quickly. I know we haven't seen each other in a very long time, but I didn't know who else to call. The hotel is fully booked, so you won't be receiving any new guests while I'm gone. Please just follow these simple rules and everything will be just fine. Do not disturb the guests for any reason. No knocking. They must not be disturbed by any means. The grandfather clock at the end of the hall is very old and very loud and must never be allowed to chime. As it approaches 12 o'clock, turn the clock back, but also make sure that it remains as accurate as possible. The clock must never stop. There are no room numbers at this hotel, but you will be able to find your room easily, since it is the only door with a handle. If you get hungry, I've prepared some food for you in the kitchen. Good luck, and I'll see you in a few days. P.S. You'll find your key behind the desk. I took the key from the rack behind the desk and slowly proceeded up the large staircase, which eventually led me to the main hallway. I was relieved to see that the only door with a handle on it stood at the entrance of the hallway. I used my key and stepped inside. It wasn't the Hilton, but still a major step up from my last job, and for just 2 days I could sleep pretty much anywhere. The storm showed no signs of letting up, but at least there weren't any leaks in the ceiling. As the hour approached midnight, I prepared to set the clock back. I quietly crept down the hallway, observing each door as I passed by. I was still a bit confused about the clock, but I assumed it also had something to do with not disturbing the guests. It seemed like the other doors could only be opened and closed from the inside, which I thought was strange, but knowing my uncle, there was probably a good reason for it. As I reached the old grandfather clock at the end of the hallway, I couldn't help but observe the amazing attention to detail. It looked very old and heavy and felt like it was custom made specifically for the hotel. I turned back the hands of the clock until they were just after midnight. However, I still needed to wait a few more minutes before making a final correction to ensure that the time remained accurate. While I was waiting, I glanced down the long hallway and noticed a faint light coming from beneath one of the doors. It looked like someone was having trouble sleeping, or perhaps just afraid of the dark. I made a small adjustment to the clock, turning the hands back again very slightly, and made my way back to my room. As I passed the room with the light on, I could hear what sounded like voices coming from the other side. The fact that I couldn't understand what was being said just made me even more curious, but as I got closer, I felt this terrible chill which gave me this uncanny feeling that something bad was about to happen. I hurried back to my room where I tried desperately to shake this feeling of what I could only describe as a fear of impending doom. I headed straight back to bed and just cleared my conscience of these strange thoughts and feelings, and eventually fell fast asleep. The following night presented me with yet another spell of cold and stormy weather. I guess it was quite typical for the region, but I was surprised by how much rainfall there had been since I arrived. Apart from the occasional rumble of thunder, the day had been extremely quiet, with no requests or interactions from any of the guests whatsoever. I had already turned the clock back at 12 noon, and there wasn't all that much else to do. This job was turning out to be a lot easier than I imagined. I was still feeling tired, having not slept very well the night before, and it was still around 4 hours before midnight. I could hardly keep my eyes open, so I opted for an early night's sleep and set an alarm on my phone to remind me to change the clock back once again. I quickly drifted off into a deep sleep. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, I awoke. I looked at the clock on the table and couldn't believe my eyes as they focused on the time. It was exactly 11:59. I didn't hear any alarm go off, and there was no time to find out why. I panicked and rushed into the long hallway. By the time I reached the clock, it was already too late. Perhaps none of the guests heard the clock over the sound of the rain and thunder outside, but either way, I knew I had let my uncle down and felt completely doomed. But I realized none of that mattered when I turned around to face the hallway. Luckily, it was all just a bad dream. A terrible nightmare, probably manifesting an underlying sense of fear that I wouldn't wake up in time. The strange thing was, it turned out that the battery on my phone went dead during the night, and I would have overslept had it not been for the terrible dream. Fortunately, I still had 5 minutes to walk down the hall and turn the clock back. I was quite sure that my phone was fully charged when I set the alarm, and wondered what could possibly cause the battery to drain so quickly.